Welcome, everyone, to stop number 3 of the 2024 Rangers Ed Rivalry Tour. This time, we're going to talk a little New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers. This is your host, Cousin Ed, here with my co-host, Little Ed. What's up, bud?
How's it going? Fresh off an exciting weekend on the boardwalk with Coach and Lindsay. Kathy was there helping out as well. The craft fair went really well.
So talk about the craft fair. Tell the fans what was going on. I'm sure they saw the Instagram post, but
a few of our friend Mark, our fan Mark, stopped by. A few new fans, hopefully, if you're watching, that's awesome. It was lovely or great to meet everybody. Lindsay and I sold it. What?
I want you to mention Paul before you get off the track.
Oh yeah, Paul. I forgot about that. Shout out to Paul and his wife. Lindsay and I ran into them on the train at a regular season game, and we helped them out with their train. They're from Florida as well. Well, originally from Long Island, moved to Florida, came back to visit, whatever. Long story short, they had trouble with the new train system, so we helped them out. And then they randomly were just walking the boardwalk and saw our tent and came walking over. And Lindsay recognized him right away. And it took me a few minutes, but it clicked finally. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So it was just like a completely random thing. And he ended up hanging out for a little while. He got to meet Coach, and he's an every week listener. Since he met us on the train, he was able to set up his phone, so he gets reminded for the episodes every week. So he listens every week. So that was really cool of him. We haven't spoken to him since we saw him on the train. So it was just an unbelievable, just start off to the weekend, I guess. I guess a good omen, right? So yeah, we did really well. Sold a ton of our stuff from Little Ed's workshop, the Rangers memorabilia, and a lot of other New York teams. I had the jersey plaques, like the ones behind me, Zibanejad and Kreider. Didn't sell for some reason. I'm not really sure why. But Fox, Panarin, Shesterkin, and Lundqvist sold.
Is it different? It looks kind of 3D compared to the other ones you used to make.
Yeah, so Lindsay and I got a new machine a new version of our old machine that's like a high-powered laser that carves through the wood.
You have to go like this when you say laser.
Yeah, I cut out each individual piece of wood and then stack them on top of each other and make them kind of like the jersey. Nice. The jersey kind of comes off where the stitching kind of comes off the jersey, whatever.
You're gonna have to update my plaque now.
Yeah, I got these for sale. So if you want to buy one, I'll give you a family discount. Promo code Little Ed's Workshop. So yeah, if you guys want to buy my Kreider or my Zibanejad, I know Mark, the guy, our fan who stopped by, reserved another Kreider, but let me keep it on the table to show it off. So I definitely owe him a Kreider, but if anybody wants this one, you can have this one as well. So yeah, back to the craft fair. It was a lot of fun. We got to hang out, enjoy the weather. We lucked out with weather, right, Coach?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And Lindsay had a lot of cool beach designs and other Long Beach themed items. The magnets were selling like hotcakes, literally, which was hilarious. The item that we didn't really were going to do until the last minute, and that ended up being the hottest item. So that was super cool.
Magnets?
And, yeah, little LBNY magnets, just
refrigerated magnets
flying off the shelf or flying off the table. Like we couldn't keep restocking them fast enough. It was hilarious.
Just Long Beach, New York. That's it.
That's it. Everyone loves their LBNY. So just kept us laughing the whole time. It was a ton of fun. Even though we were super successful with selling stuff, it was a lot of fun either way. So that's what's important. And we got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of nice people that live in Long Beach, and also a ton of Ranger fans. A lot of people that stopped by were Ranger fans, not a ton of Islander fans. Neil is going to join us in a little bit. There was a Devils fan who asked me if I had any Devils plaques, so hopefully he'll place an order soon. But yeah, man, I mean, other than that, there's not much to say.
We got Charlie Whiskey in the chat. We got Charlie Whiskey. Charlie, Coach Ed building dog houses for the local strays. I love it.
Well, Coach Ed did have some nice whiskey and wine racks available for sale. So if anyone's interested in a custom Coach Ed wine rack from an recycled pallet wood, you can also order one of those.
He whittled it from one piece of wood.
what else was I going to say? But yeah, I mean, truly, it was just really like a humbling experience. It was a ton of work. I give the people a lot of credit that do that full time. It was an exhausting day, just having to talk to people the whole time, sell stuff in the sun, in the heat, having to try to eat lunch while you're still trying to sell stuff. It was just exhausting, and it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did it, and hopefully we'll do it again soon. And yeah, like I said, we're going to try and get the social media and like all of our items out there. So if you're interested in purchasing, you can always just shoot me a message, or if you have my number, hit me up and I'll send you some pictures of stuff. And we'll definitely give you some good prices. So we're looking forward to continuing to sell our stuff. And of course, with Coach Ed's help with all his signs and recycled wood that we get from the boneyard in the garage. And yeah, it's just been fun to spend quality time with each other and like get our artwork and our creativeness out there, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are really talented, and I've been telling you for years that you should do stuff like this. So I'm really, proud of you for doing that. It's a big commitment for you, both of you, to sit there and make all that stuff.
A lot of work they did. A lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the stuff you were sending me all week, and I know you put a lot of time into it. But it's rewarding, because you make a product like that looks so nice that, you can make that yourself. You don't need to go buy souvenirs. You can just make your own. So, and now you get to, share it with other people. So I'm really proud of you for doing that. It's awesome. You and Lindsay both. It's amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys improve and all the stuff I can get,
I got an item that I got an
Not
item
that I need any more stuff.
I got an item that is in the process you're gonna absolutely love. So I'm sure maybe there's a Christmas gift in the future for you, but at least you're definitely gonna at least want to buy it. So we'll see how soon I can get it done.
This for me is marking it up 150%.
The guinea
once
pig.
It's made. Yeah, once it's made, that's it.
And
put it this way. Go ahead. Eddie would have walked away from that table with at least two souvenir bags.
Yeah, well, that was what I was about to say. The one guy who came up with all of his kids, the shout out, I'm not sure if we got his name, but he was from Manhattan, bought a ton of my plaques, and he bought a Rempe shirt. So before we bring Neil on, I had to wear my Rempe shirt. I got the ones for sale in the background, so I removed the Stanley Cup playoffs from the bottom to 2024. So the design is still up for sale if anybody wants a Rempe shirt for this upcoming season. I'm working on getting other mascot heads. So if you don't want the Devil, maybe we'll throw the Islanders mascot in there. It's the Hurricanes mascot.
Do the Islanders have a mascot? I guess
Sparky the Dragon.
Oh no.
I think they're trying to work in. We're trying to work in the fisherman like every couple games or whatever. So maybe they're trying to switch eventually. But
Sparky the Dragon. So
let's bring on our guest who's not waiting backstage for too much longer.
Yeah. Let's bring Neil on. What's up, Neil? Neil Villapiano of Devil's State of Mind podcast. He is you're also writing with the Hockey Writers, right?
I was. I'm currently right now writing for Pucks and Pitchforks over on Fansided. So that's my new venture right now, and really excited so far. Really been enjoying it. Shout out to Nick Villapiano, who's kind of in charge, who gave me the opportunity. And I've already put out a couple of articles, so you can go check it out. You can I have my own profile on there, and you can go check out all the articles. I'll have more stuff coming out as we get closer to training camp, and obviously once the season gets underway. But yeah, doing that, and obviously Devil's State of Mind.
Yeah, and on X, it's at the NVP show, at Devil State, and at Pitchforked Puck, right?
That is correct.
All right, cool. So check him out. Go to X. You can see his articles probably from the links on there. Check him out on YouTube, Devil State of Mind podcast. Our listeners are familiar with you, Neil, and I know Gaza's been really looking forward to you coming on. So
I'm sure. I'm sure Gaza's been waiting for this day for sure.
Chomping at the bit.
Oh yeah.
So
you was DMing me earlier, just giving me warning about it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Actually, are probably one of the few content creators in the NHL world that may have had a busy summer. But we'll get to that in a second. I want to talk a little bit about last year. Which you probably don't want to talk about. But, the Devils last year, pretty much didn't meet expectations. They went to the second round in 22-23, beat the Rangers in 7. that was a big step for them in the rebuild. And last year were predicted by many to win the division and maybe take a further step and get to the Final Four. Unfortunately, they missed the playoffs. So just your take, what is the biggest reason? I know there's a lot of reasons, but what do you think is the biggest reason that happened?
It's a really good question. And I think really when I sit there and think about it, I think arrogance might actually be the biggest downfall for the Devils. And that includes myself. I mean, truth be told, obviously when you look at what happened 2 years ago and you're coming off of that high and you look at where the Devils team is going, you can't help but imagine the possibilities that the Devils had going into this season, this past year. And, and it was a lot of excitement. And I think that a lot of us felt that the Devils were just going to continue their, dominance. They were going to continue to have this play, and reality slapped them in the face. Multitude, like you said, there's a multitude of different reasons why this season went the way it did. Injuries, goaltending, poor lineup decisions at times, coaching just in general, just a multitude of different things. Lack of accountability, I think, was a big one. But I think arrogance. I think there was a level of arrogance from the boys in the locker room that felt that they had arrived, that this was now their opportunity to really, kind of take control and really stamp their mark. And they had reality just thrown right in their face. And they go into this offseason pissed off. I think if you ask any player or anybody associated with this team, they're pissed off. They're pissed off that the season went the way it did, that they didn't make the playoffs. They embarrassed themselves in many ways. And the best thing for them is that they come in as a motivated group, from the head coach to the front office, to the players, to the training staff, to the fans. It's a motivated organization from top to bottom that wants to prove to everybody that last year was a fluke. Not 2 years ago, last year was a fluke, and that this team is better than what their record showed and their performances and everything. And from all of that, I think that you have a team that is at times battle tested, but you got to put your money where your mouth is. And I think that's what Tom Fitzgerald did this offseason with the acquisitions that he made. And now it's about, they got to prove it on the ice. And you won't really know. You won't even know through the first 10 games where this team is going. You got to give them at least a quarter of the season to kind of get a good idea, the way I look at it. I go into the season with optimism, but I go into the season with cautious optimism because there obviously is still things that can go wrong. And there are risks that the Devils are taking, especially in net. But at the end of the day, you sometimes have to take those risks in order to take that next step to trying to be a Stanley Cup contender. I'm not saying the Devils are a team that is going to win the Stanley Cup and, make this, run, but I think this is a team that can make a deep run in the playoffs. And I think that they are I think on paper, they look like a more playoff ready team with some of the guys that they've added to the roster. And they don't want to be intimidated anymore by everyone that they play, no matter who they play.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh when you say the Devils are a Stanley Cup contender, because they're obviously were a great team 2 years ago, and they made a lot of changes. But just looking at last year, you say they made some changes at goaltending. Last year, I think for me, the goaltending was the biggest reason for the Devils' failure. I mean, they just got no consistent goaltending the entire year, whether it was Vanacek, Akira Schmid, what's the other kid's name? Dawes. Nico Dawes. Nobody really performed. And honestly, I'm looking at the changes they made, and they're all on the back end, and they're all most of them are on the back end and in net. So I think they're just trying to shore that up. But you also didn't even mention the injuries that they had last year. Jack Hughes missed time. How long was he out for? I think 20 games.
He was out for several weeks. Dougie Hamilton was out from early November to the end of the season. I mean, he missed 3/4 of the season. You had Nico Hischier was out for a period of time. You had guys out of the lineup that are so valuable to the team. And I think the biggest loss from an injury standpoint was probably Dougie Hamilton, because in many ways he really got that offense going. Even when you look at the early point of last year when the Devils were basically power play merchants, where it seemed like every time they were on the power play, they were going to score a goal. They were just lethal. Dougie Hamilton was a big reason why. And yeah, Dougie's not the best when it comes to playing defense. He's more of an offensive defenseman. There's no doubt about that. But I think his skill set and what he brings on a night-to-night basis, I think was a big loss. And you're asking, rookies like Luke Hughes and Simo Nemec, even other guys that eventually came into the lineup, Santeri Pataka, even Jonas Siegenthaler, John Marino, to take bigger roles. And some of the guys just were not ready for that. That's not how they play. And it cost the Devils in many ways. And the Devils wanted to make sure that they shore up both the back end of the goaltending going into this season so that they are prepared for situations like this.
So do you think Markstrom's the answer then?
I don't know. I'll be very honest with you and say that I don't know. I am excited.
I like Neil. He's an honest guy.
I'm excited about Markstrom, especially for what he can do from a positive standpoint. But any Calgary Flames fan will tell you, honestly, that he will have.
I think he's hot and cold.
Yeah, right. He's hot and cold. 1 minute he looks great. The next minute he looks awful. And sometimes it takes him a couple of shots to really get going and find his groove. And if he gives up a soft goal here or there early in the game, as we saw a lot with the Devils last year, they struggled to come. They struggled right away. They put themselves behind the 8 ball before, everybody even got in their seats. So,
well, I think by saying that, first of all, that's a learning curve for those young forwards, because you have to still play the game. If they get behind early, you have to just stay the course.
Right.
And they don't. They just want to run and gun, and that's what they have to pull the reins in on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the coach's challenge, I believe.
For sure. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for the entire, team up and down. And I think with Markstrom, if he can perform at a level that he was performing at through the majority of last year and can provide that, I think the Devils will be in good shape. And I like having Jake Allen as the backup. I think he showed, he did have some success once he got traded over from Montreal. And he's a reliable backup. I think that's just really what Tom Fitzgerald wanted when it came to acquiring him, obviously before acquiring Markstrom. And now, now we're in a situation where Tom Fitzgerald's done the work. He's done about as much as he can do with this roster and building this team to where it is now. And now it's about, what Sheldon Keefe and the coaching staff can do to get this team. And quite frankly, it's time for the players to step up. And that's everybody from top to bottom. From Jack Hughes all the way down to, Nathan Bastian. That's everybody's got to step up. Everybody's got to.
Are you confident? Are you confident that Sheldon Keefe can lead this team, being that he couldn't do it with Toronto?
I am confident.
That offensive firepower?
I am confident because, number one, Sheldon Keefe, as people might sound surprised by this, but you'll understand once I explain the whole point that this is probably the best overall team on paper that Sheldon Keefe has ever coached, because he doesn't just have offensive firepower. He has a strong defensive core of guys when they're healthy. Again, when they're healthy, he has strong net minding when it's, consistent. I don't think he's ever had a goaltender at the level that Jacob Markstrom has been at. He's never had a number one true defenseman other than Morgan Riley in his entire career. And now he has even a guy like Brett Pesce. He has other guys that are physical defensive defensemen. I think that was something that Toronto, even now, lacks on the back end. And one thing that I look at is Sheldon Keefe is going to be a very motivated coach, because he's going to want to prove to everybody that, he wasn't just a product of the Maple Leaf success, and that he can coach, at a high level and take a team deep into the playoffs. And so he's going to go in with a lot of motivation on his own end. And I think some of his tactics, could be good for this team. He's learned a lot, obviously, from his time in Toronto, coaching in the biggest market in the NHL to now coaching not as big of a market, but still the expectations are very high. And I think Sheldon Keefe will do well. And I think it's just a matter of time. So I do I do have confidence in Sheldon Keefe leading this team for sure.
Well, you also had confidence that Akira Schmid was going to be their guy last year, so that's a little questionable.
Well, I will say I was ready to hammer Neil on this episode today, and unfortunately, so I apologize to Gaza, but he's come in with a lot of humility and a reasonable perspective on the Devils, so it makes it difficult to do so. But I want to talk about the Devils' back end, right? So
sure.
Last year during the Rivalry Tour, I think we talked a little bit about John Marino and how against the Rangers. I guess, is it 3 years ago now? Geez, 3 seasons ago. He, played scared in that first round series, and he's smallish. Devils fans were in love with him for a little bit. I think he's a very good analytics player. But he gets dealt for 2 seconds, and the Devils sign Brett Pesce, and they bring in Brendan Dillon. Is that a sign you think that Fitzgerald's looking at the Devils' back end and saying, we got a lot of offensive firepower here with Hughes, and hopefully Hamilton's healthy and Simone, so let's bring in some beef, and recognizing that Marino's not the answer there?
I think you nailed it on the head, honestly. I think that's exactly why they made that move. Number one, I mean, the rumors were swirling well before the Marino trade happened that the Devils were going to sign Brett Pesce when free agency opened. And they needed to make room for cap space. And Marino was the odd man out when you really look at it, especially on that right side. And I think the Devils looked at it and said that it was an opportunity for them to not only get back in the draft, because they did want to get a couple picks to try to draft. They ended up drafting the number one European netminder in this past draft, which is good. But they clearly wanted to clear cap space so that they could make the Brett Pesce signing. That's why they did it. But also, Brett Pesce brings a much more physical defensive defenseman approach. Pesce doesn't get a lot of points, even though I think he was on Carolina's second power play unit at many times the last couple of years. He's not a point per game defenseman. He's not a point getter. He's a defensive guy who relies on blocking shots, finishing his checks. That's why they did it. Then they also get Brendan Dillon on the left side to do that as well. So now, when you look at it, you have a little bit more of a balance of that defensive core. And they also got Jonathan Kovacevic in a small trade with Montreal, who's a 6'8", 6'7" tall young defenseman who is more of a defensive defenseman. And he's going to be the seventh guy without question, but still another big dude that could come in the lineup to block shots, finish his checks. That's really what it was. The Devils wanted to sacrifice speed and skill for more defense and grit, i.e. playoff style hockey players. That's really what they were looking for when you look at their free agency moves and everything that they did. And yeah, Curtis, I know very well that Hurricanes fans did not want to see Pesce go. But I mean, the Hurricanes put themselves in a very tough spot financially, as we can clearly see throughout this offseason. But the Devils, it gives them a guy who can really, he's a top 4 defenseman, can be physical, like I said, finish his checks. And that's really what it was all about. Exactly. It was to help shore up the defense and actually be able to do their job on the back end.
Not only that, he's coached by Brindamore for how many years? So he brings in that attitude and that pedigree.
For sure. And also it should be mentioned that he did grow up a Ranger fan, and obviously he has to change his ways. And he did play in New Jersey, I found out, which is really interesting. He played youth hockey and a little bit, I think, of high school in New Jersey, which I thought was cool. So I didn't know that. So that was a fun fact I learned.
How do you see the D pair shaking out?
Really good question. I think most likely we're going to see once again Siegenthaler alongside Dougie Hamilton as the top unit. I think the second unit's probably going to be Pesce. I think that it would make sense to pair Luke Hughes with Brett Pesce to have that defensive defenseman, veteran guy that Luke Hughes can kind of learn from and rely on a little bit. And the same goes for the third pairing with Simone Nemec on the right and you have Brendan Dillon on the left. I think that's the most likely way you're going to see it once we get underway. And like I said, Kovacevic, maybe Santeri Hataka, maybe Seamus Casey if he just comes out of nowhere in training camp. I highly doubt it, but will be the seventh defenseman.
Coach is really worried about Seamus Casey this year. So,
and why is that?
No, it's a joke. He doesn't know who that is.
He has no clue who that is. I don't think most people know who Seamus Casey is.
No, I'm just messing around. Yeah. But I like those pairs. I think that's probably the way to go. You put the young player with the veteran and the defensive-minded veteran. Two guys can grow their games. Makes sense. And then offensively, you guys also took Nason from Carolina. But I noticed Dawson Mercer is still an RFA. So I'll let you mention Nason, but really with Mercer, are you a little worried about an offer sheet after what just went down with the Blues and the Oilers?
Well, Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period literally earlier today said that the Devils and Mercer are not really close on a deal right now, which is a little bit surprising considering the fact that it doesn't seem like it should be a complicated deal to make, especially for Mercer coming off of a tough year. I would have thought that maybe, I don't want to decrease the value of Dawson Mercer because the biggest thing that I will say about Mercer is that he is reliable. He has, knock on wood, he has not missed a single game in 3 seasons playing in the NHL. Just pretty remarkable that he has been able to be there for every single game that he could possibly play in the NHL up until this point. I am a little bit surprised. I'm not that worried because knowing Tom Fitzgerald, he's a shrewd businessman. And if they need to up the price a little bit, they will. And I think that there's obviously a lot of mutual desire from both parties. They want to get a deal done. We saw it last year with the ongoing saga of when was Jesper Bratt going to sign his deal? When was Timo Meier going to sign his deal? And it went into, beyond when free agency started, beyond, there was definitely worry, but Tom Fitzgerald and everybody got it done. And I think the same thing will happen here. Do I think it'll happen before training camp? My guess is that it will, and it will come when we don't it'll come on a Wednesday night when nobody expects it kind of thing. So I'm not completely worried, although, again, you see what St. Louis did with getting not 1 but 2 RFAs. It's pretty remarkable. But again, it doesn't happen often that an RFA gets, offer sheeted and then goes to the team that he got offer sheeted to. I also would be curious to know what teams would be interested. I'm sure there would be a lot, considering Mercer can play on the wing. He does have success as a centerman as well. He's a two-way forward. Young guy still with can be a top 6 guy, can be a bottom 6 guy. He can do a little bit of everything, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
How much would they have to offer to steal him? I mean, I'm seeing on Puckpedia they have about $4.976 million in cap space. So I'm thinking they'd have to go over 5.5 probably to put the Devils really in a bind.
Yeah, and that's the tough part because Mercer is coming off of a pretty down year overall statistically. I think if we were talking last offseason, I think the price would have been up to 5, 5.5. But I think I keep thinking that a deal is going to be made somewhere between the $3 and $3.5 million. And I think it's going to be a bridge deal. Think of it like years ago when Patrick Laine got his bridge deal from Winnipeg before he eventually got traded to Columbus. It was like it dragged on for such long time that they just agreed on like a 2-year prove it kind of contract. That's kind of what I see from Tom Fitzgerald. And obviously there's also the pressure of you want to have money, not just, for this year, if you have to make other moves at some point during the year, but eventually you're going to have to look at other guys long-term, like, Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec and guys like that eventually. But Tom Fitzgerald usually gets his guys, especially the guys that he considers to be the long-term pieces in New Jersey. He usually is able to get the deal done. So that's kind of what I expect moving forward. I would be I wouldn't be surprised if somebody offers Sheeted Mercer. I would be surprised if the Devils ended up letting him walk and they don't keep him at all.
You mentioned before, I forget who it was at this point, but him being able to stay healthy for every game.
Mercer,
traditionally, I've been chirping you for Jack Hughes not being able to stay healthy. I think every episode you've joined us for. So I got to ask you again.
I was waiting for Coach to ask me about Jack
Hughes. Well, now he's on the cover of NHL, so he's probably doing a ton of photo shoots. So, do you really think he's in the gym? Every season's another thing with this guy, Neil.
I know.
Every season's another thing.
Well, look, first and foremost, it's great, obviously, that the Devils have not one but two guys on the cover. I will say as much as this. I am not a fan that Luke Hughes is also on the cover, personally, because he's a second-year player who, yes, finished second in the Calder Trophy voting, but, is he
Put Quinn Hughes there. Put Quinn Hughes with him,
Yeah, it's...
They could have put Quinn and Jack on there.
We could have put Quinn and Jack and it would have been fine. I don't think Luke would have been offended, honestly. I don't. But... Yeah, no, it's a cool thing.
Maybe it was Jack and Quinn saying you can't leave him out.
Sounds like it's a Dennis Potvin, Jean Potvin type of thing.
Well, let's not skip around the question, Neil.
Yeah.
Is Jack Hughes going to stay healthy this season, or what's the situation?
I don't know. There's your answer to that. I'll be very honest with you. I do not know because. No,
I'm not asking for a direct answer. Just comment.
No, I get it. And look, that's going to be the question every year with Jack, no matter what, especially if every year he deals with something, right? The question is going to be, it's just Curtis saying the coach should be on the cover of NHL 26. I'm all for, by the way. I'm all for.
Someone's got to Photoshop that.
Yeah, we'll Photoshop that for sure. We got his Coach of the Year award from last year.
It should be the one. No, it should be the one with the beer, the hockey stick beer.
But going back to Jack Hughes, we all know that the kid is a phenomenal talent when he's healthy. But let's be honest, he hasn't been healthy in any point. Fully. Yeah, there you go. Also, I think
maybe Mike can give me a better one.
They also gave a locker to Jim and Ellen as well, their parents, on the left and right side of that picture, which is kind of.
I didn't notice that.
Which is a neat little Easter egg that they put in there for that.
Well, Neil, the thing is with Hughes, so in 22-23, which is the year the Devils beat the Rangers, so not this past season, the year before that. He played in 78 games. He had 99 points and performed pretty well in the playoffs, I thought. Overall for his game, at least. There's flaws in his game that we have discussed. We get a lot of crap online for saying anything negative about Jack Hughes. There's an army of Jack Hughes supporters that think that we're just being biased and, and
but you're either dealing with either Devils fans or Jack Hughes,
well, there's a lot of Rangers fans who are kind of obsessed with Jack Hughes because they almost got him, so they almost got him. So it's we wanted him, we didn't get him, so now we're bashing him. It kind of makes us look petty, so they defend him instead to make them look objective. When in reality, we're being objective by just criticizing flaws in his game. We think he's a great offensive player. Obviously, I'm sure Little Ed and Coach Ed would agree with that. No question, with the puck on his stick, the guy's dynamic. But anyway, 78 games, that's pretty much a full season, right? Correct. So he's had one almost full season. But other than that, his career high is 62. I know some of those were the COVID-shortened years.
Right.
We have fans in the chat saying that Kakko has played less games than Hughes, which honestly I didn't know. And that's a huge flaw in Kakko's game too. And that's why I think his development has been flawed as well. It's you can't get a full season out of him either.
Right.
Well, comparing Hughes to Kakko is crazy.
You can't.
At this
I'm not trying to do that, but everyone always jumps
that.
down my throat for doing that.
Right. But
who's comparing them at this point? Other than
there's still, believe me, there's still people on Twitter that still do it. I don't know why. I really I don't understand. But I think at the end of the day with Jack, It's just simply that he has to stay healthy. And it comes from a couple of things. Number one, he needs to obviously understand how much of a marked man he is game in and game out. Like, and how much the other team is going to want to go after him and, attack him. That's number one. Number two, he needs to have some amount of moves in his repertoire that allow him to kind of weave his way out of a hit, or at least brace for a hit in a different way that will not hurt him. Like, one of the things that I give a lot of credit to Jesper Bratt, his teammate, a lot of credit for, is that he has learned some moves that have allowed him to kind of avoid these big hits. Or if he's set up to get hit, he kind of braces for it in a way where he doesn't get rocked and then he gets hurt and he can't play. Jack plays, as we all know, with reckless abandon many times. And that sets him up to get hit, especially, at center ice or like along the boards. And he has to be more careful. He has to be more mindful of that. And if he is, he will be able to stay out there more because, the best ability is availability. And the Devils will only go as far as Jack Hughes offensively will take them, in many ways. Yes, they do have other guys that have, assets as well offensively. Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Dawson Mercer, as mentioned before. But if Jack's not in the lineup, that's a huge hole regardless of the situation. So Jack has to stay healthy. And the answer that I would give people, to answer your question, will Jack stay healthy? I don't know. Because I have to see what he does once he gets on the ice, when training camp starts, when the preseason gets underway, and obviously when the season kicks off. Has he learned from his mistakes? Is he growing up? Because he's still a young kid. People look at this guy as a superstar and one of the best players in the game, but guess what? The dude's not even 25 yet. Like,
he's 23. He's 23 years old. I mean, he's going to grow.
23 years of age. I mean,
yeah.
He has to learn very quickly, how much of a marked man he is and how much he has to be careful. That doesn't mean he should stop.
23. He's 23 years old, and he's already minus 47 in his career, by the way.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
I'm just kidding. I don't really care. I don't care about
the funny thing is that it wouldn't even surprise me if that was true, though.
It is true. I wasn't kidding about the number. I was kidding. I was kidding about it being a big deal because I don't care about plus minus at all.
It's a very so and so stat to me, I would say.
Well, we're getting a stat from behind the scenes here from our producer. Devils are the second lightest team in the league. Average Devil is 193.6 pounds. They're all twigs. So, I mean, I guess that being said, who's on the ice? What?
Was that going into this season? They're the second lightest team.
Does that include Timo Meier's head?
He's checking that right now. But he said right now. So either way, who's on the ice that's protecting them, or able to give Hughes, I guess, that freedom that you were just talking about a little bit.
Well, you mentioned one guy before, and that's, Stefan Nason, one guy that is just not going to take, crap from anybody. And it's nice that he's back because he played for the Devils at one point in his career. He knows, the organization well. He played with a couple of guys. He didn't play with Jack Hughes, but he's played with a couple of guys on this roster already. And he's a guy that is physical. You guys saw him in the playoffs when they played Carolina. Brendan Dillon is a net
front guy,
He's a net front guy, and he's annoying. He's a pest. And Brendan Dillon's another guy. Paul Cotter, another guy the Devils acquired in a trade with Vegas.
Yeah, talk about that trade, Neil. Explain that trade to me because.
Also, by the way, your boy Curtis McDermott as well is still on the team.
Oh yeah, well that's just for Matt Rempe.
Curtis McDermott is only there for Matt Rempe. Nobody else. No one else.
Yeah, seriously.
He'll play. Seriously. He's going to play 4 games this year.
Yeah. Yes.
We've been having a bet, by the way, with in Devils World as what is the over under for minutes played that Rempe will have this year against the Devils. We're trying to figure out if he's going to last more than 5 minutes.
Well, on that subject, what did you think of the Rempe shirt? Because there was a lot of offended Devils fans out there.
The Rempe, what, the shirt?
Sure.
Yeah, the shirt. No, I think it's great, by the way. I think it's a very creative design. Yeah. Here's the thing about the whole Matt Rempe thing. It is very interesting to ask Ranger fans their thoughts on him because it's one way or the other. It's either I absolutely love this kid, like he's awesome, blah blah blah, and then there's other people that will say he's just a goon, like he's never going to amount to much of anything else, like it's pointless to put him in the lineup sometimes, like he doesn't have anything going up there. Like
you want our thoughts on Rempe?
I would love to hear your thoughts.
All right, so my thoughts on Rempe are he makes the NHL at 21 years old as a 6th round pick. Was not expected to do that, right? So right then and there, that's already a feat. Whether he's just a goon or playing 2 minutes a game or not, he's in the NHL at 21 as a 6th round pick. That's impressive. He's big. He's a pretty good skater for his size. He's obviously a menacing presence out there. Brings a lot of energy. He's got average talent as far as his puck skills. I don't see him being a detriment with the puck. I don't see him being a superstar, but he's got a great work ethic. And I think that his potential is more than a 4th liner. But I think what if you're expecting that, you could end up disappointed because the odds of him growing into a 2nd or 3rd liner consistently and not getting suspended, etc., is probably not as high as him just being an effective 4th liner or being out of the league entirely in a few years. But he's got a great work ethic. And that to me is
more, a long way.
To piggyback that statement, I could see him maybe developing into like a Matt Martin type player, like, not going to give you a ton of points, but he's going to kind of just anchor that 4th line, maybe be a little bit of a leader later on in his career.
And have a long career.
If he makes it that long, and like Cousin Ed said, he has the aspirations. Yeah, he has the aspirations, which, I'm sure every player does, but for him to say it publicly and then actually show it in the offseason and put in the work, it means a lot, I'm sure, to fans. And
his personality. He's got a great personality, so he's likable.
Right.
Whether you can't really hate.
Do I think he needs to be in every game? Not necessarily. If he's going to sit on the bench and only play 2 minutes, I don't think that's really worth it also. So, I think he's got to develop his game into not just being a goon and not just being a fighter, which I think he has. I think he does when he is on the ice and when he's not taking like the dumb penalty or getting called for a high hit. He's pretty effective on the ice. Defensemen are petrified of him. He can't be moved in front of the net, and he actually has not decent hands. He can handle the puck for an NHL player, So
I think it's decent. I think decent's fair.
Yeah, and to have the opportunity to practice,
he put in a nice goal in the playoffs, right?
From skills wise against a guy like Shesterkin every day in practice, I think is a pretty good advantage to him.
Right, and a lot of skilled players in the Rangers for that.
Sure.
Coach, you want to tell Neil your thoughts on Rempe, or you going to gush over him or not?
Before we move on?
I feel that I agree with everything that Ed and Eddie said. I just feel that he learned a lot last year. Watching him live, he had that headhunter mentality. Not headhunter, but just hit everything he can. Once he learns the game and he takes the hits he needs to take and not chasing, and he learns how to play hockey, which I think he will, because what they just said is he wants to learn. I think he's going to be a pretty effective 4th liner. Sure. And I think the league is coming in. It's going to be part of my little preseason meeting. I think the league is coming into, when I was a kid, there was your 1st and 2nd liners, and the 3rd and 4th liners hardly ever played. Mm-hmm. Now it's getting to the point where you need not equal, but the gap has shrunk as far as, like I said, there's top 50 guys in the league that are phenomenal. But then everybody else, the talent is very close, and it becomes the mind. And I think he's got the right attitude to get a little higher in that level. 3rd, I don't think he's ever going to be more than a 3rd liner personally, but that's not bad. If you're in the NHL as a 3rd liner, I would take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
Did you still want me to give my thoughts on the Cotter deal? I know that was something that you were.
My main question with the Cotter deal was, for about a year,
went off the rails a bit.
I saw Alexander Holtz in trade rumors, and the Devils fans, the internet did not want to trade him for anyone. I mean, really good players. He was, we can get more, and don't trade him.
Sure.
And Akira Schmid, obviously the hero or one of the heroes, and against the Rangers, billed as a potential goalie of the future, and it seems a little underwhelming to get just a third and Paul Cotter. And look, Cotter, I'll let you answer it. I don't want to take your analysis away, so I'll let you answer it. But I don't think he's a bad player or anything. But that seems like a lot for that deal. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, for sure. It was a lot to get a guy who's a bottom six guy, for sure. I think you probably could have gotten more for him. I mean, less for him. But I think also it kind of shows you the value of the other players that went along in the deal as well, and what Vegas kind of envisions them. Like Akira Schmid, they already said in Vegas that Akira Schmid's going to be in the AHL. Like they already said that. So that's kind of, which is a bit surprising. I thought that they would give him a shot to maybe be Aiden Hill's backup, or, maybe try to beat out one of the guys there. As far as Alexander Holtz, I don't really know where he fits with that team. But I think overall, when I look at it, I'll say it from the Holtz and Schmid perspective first, that with Holtz, I don't know what ended up truly being his downfall in New Jersey. He might have done something or wasn't doing something that frustrated the organization. I think the organization also failed him in terms of his development at times. I think there was also times that Holtz he was doing all that he could, and it just wasn't going to click with what the Devils were doing. I was hopeful that he would get a shot with Sheldon Keefe's coaching style, that maybe it would get him going, but obviously that's not going to happen. So I still have faith that Holtz can become a good player in this league. Not a great player, but a good player. And we'll see what happens when he's in Vegas. As far as Schmid is concerned, I think now with the with the emergence of Isaac Poulter, who had a great ECHL run to the conference finals with the Adirondack Thunder, getting his ELC. You obviously have Nico Dawes, who has a ton of NHL experience, still a very young netminder in his own right. You have Brennan as well, Jakub Malik. I think the Devils looked at it and said they could afford to let a guy like Schmid go, even though he had that great run in the playoffs 2 years ago. And also it was reported that Schmid wanted out anyway. So if that's the case, if we're going to go off of that, well, then this is an easy deal to make. So I think the Devils
but more so from the perspective, Neil, that like the Devils got Timo Meier. I remember the trade packages that were being thrown around. It was Alexander Holtz was a headlining feature in those packages. And Devils fans were saying, no, don't do that. Don't trade, you can't trade Holtz in that deal. He's a first-round pick. And then he goes in a deal for a third-line center, fourth-line center. I mean, to me, that it reminds me a little bit of holding on to an asset too long, kind of like we saw. It's a little different, but similarly to what the Rangers did with Buchnevich. Yeah. Buchnevich had established himself, but they kind of just dealt him for a bottom sixer.
Right.
When Rangers fans didn't want to include him in deals for all-stars, for a year. So was it disappointing to see Holtz result in Cotter as a fan, or?
Yeah, it was disappointing. I think first and foremost, when you look at how well Fabian Zetterlund has done in San Jose since being traded there, I think Devils fans would look back and say that they wish that they could add Holtz in that deal, swap Zetterlund for Holtz. The funny thing is that the Sharks even then were not interested in Holtz, which again I think kind of shows you maybe what even an outsider's perspective was on the kid. I don't know, that this was 2 years ago, so who really knows exactly what went down?
Well, every GM and coach has the type of player they have in mind,
right?
And every player thrives in a certain situation. So it's hard to say. He might have been caught in a situation where he wasn't happy. Now he moves on to Vegas, and he may thrive there.
Correct.
AKA my nephew's favorite, who was on the Stanley Cup now, ex-Ranger.
Delzato.
Not Delzato, on Vegas.
Oh, Howden.
Brett Howden. certain pieces of a puzzle are going to fit in certain places. Different
Right.
coaches are looking for different things, but they, whatever.
For sure. And I think with Holtz, it's disappointing because he came in with such high expectations when he was drafted. And obviously the skill level that he brought to the table. I even interviewed his skills coach over in Sweden. I had a chance to interview him last year, and asked him straight up about, what is Holtz working on. And, he explained that he's working on his skating and, his speed and everything. And I think the Devils system just didn't work for the Holtz's game. Now we'll see what Vegas can do with him. I still wish him, nothing but the best. And in terms of Paul Cotter, the Devils made it clear they're banking on his potential. That's what Tom Fitzgerald said. He's still a young player, has a Stanley Cup. He was part of the Vegas Golden Knights team. He played a ton, both in the regular season and the playoffs. He does have some scoring skill to him, and he led the Golden Knights in hits. If you look at the combined hits of Cotter and Brendan Dillon, that's over 600 hits combined from last year, which blows away anybody on the Devils. And Cotter's a guy that is an energy guy. He's a guy that's going to come in and he is going to hit people. He is going to be relentless. He's going to be a pest. And I think that's what I'm looking for. But I will say this.
And league minimum.
I would be more excited about him if the Devils had only given up like a 6th round pick for the guy.
Right, exactly.
Giving up like young players that are still not at full potential, you're kind of, I'm like not wild about it, and I'm disappointed that it didn't work out with Schmidt and Holtz, and you're giving up a decent amount for a bottom 6 guy. But
you also get the value of the cap, though, right? I mean,
right.
I'm looking at here, he's $775,000 for 2 seasons.
Yep.
And last year I think he had like, what do you have, 18 goals or 60? He had a decent amount of goals.
He had nearly 20 goals last year.
Right. So he's a productive bottom sixer on a cheap deal for 2 years, and that allows the team to spend elsewhere. And maybe they just don't think Holtz is going to do anything, So
right. And I always tell people this, that, and Coach mentioned it already, essentially, is that not everybody's going to work for your team. Not every player you draft and develop is going to thrive for your team. There's times where a guy has to go somewhere else or multiple places for it to work. And I'll give Ranger fans a really good example of this not too long ago. Jimmy Vesey, a couple of years ago, signed a PTO with the Devils. He signed a PTO, was pretty much like nobody was interested except the Devils. He had a pretty productive season in the COVID-shortened year, and it earned him a contract, and now he's a productive player again with the Rangers. Not at the level that everybody had him at when he first.
Well, he was a PTO with the Rangers too.
He was a PTO with the Rangers, but like what I'm saying is that some guys, they need to go somewhere else to kind of get going and find themselves and
it's all
figure
about the
it
atmosphere, out. The coaching staff, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're wondering if this year will be telling if that's the case for a guy like Capo Caco, who I think is getting close to that point if he doesn't break out. But yeah, that's true. That's the way it is. I mean,
so we'll see what happens with Cotter.
Neil. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah, I got a somewhat off-topic question from the Instagram chat. The December 23rd game against the Rangers Devils is at 1:00 on a Monday. Apparently, that's a school day. Do you know anything about that?
In terms of what, just like why it?
It's like I don't know. It's kind of odd. I mean,
well,
did you hear anything about why they would be 1:00?
Eve. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's weird.
I guess what's even weirder is the kids have school.
Yeah.
Do they have school on Christmas Eve too? NYR for life.
I never went to school on Christmas Eve. I'll tell you that. So I don't.
Yeah, so maybe it's even weirder that they have school. So maybe you should talk to your school instead of the NHL.
Yeah.
Or just pull your kids out of school. What are they going to learn on that day anyway?
Yeah. Half the time, those schools will have a half day anyway.
Yeah. Wait, where is the game?
At Prudential.
That's at the Rock. That one's at the Rock. Yeah.
Yeah. We also have a preseason
New
game.
York.
We might have to send you with Coach Ed to the preseason game.
I would love 2.5 hours with Coach Ed. I would love 2.5 hours with Coach Ed. I think we'd have a great time.
Oh man,
What are you going to ask me, Coach?
Maybe New York schools aren't open. There's mostly Ranger fans at that game anyway.
There you go.
Oh boy,
no comment from Neil.
so
it's a fact. It's not me.
Yeah, it is a fact.
He's not. I mean, let's be honest. He's not really wrong. Like, unfortunately, he's not.
They want to put fans in the seat.
So Neil, turning to next year, what are your thoughts on a lot of these betting platforms like FanDuel, et cetera, putting the Devils with higher Stanley Cup odds than the Rangers next year? Rangers coming off a President's Trophy final and President's Trophy finish and a conference final loss, and the Devils missing the playoffs. I mean,
I would say that I think they're banking on the team's potential. I think they're looking. I think first and foremost, they're looking at a Devils team that they feel will bounce back and have a better season. Obviously, I wouldn't put him that high though. Me personally, I think you needed to be. I think the Rangers deserve the right to have higher odds than the Devils.
Here's FanDuel's betting odds. I'm looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oilers plus 850, Panthers plus 1,000, New Jersey plus 1,100, Colorado plus 1,100, Dallas plus 1,100, Vegas plus 1,400, Rangers plus 1,500.
Yeah, they're not giving the Rangers a lot of. So I don't know why. Maybe
Carolina's plus 1,400 too.
Yeah,
Neil's a DraftKings guy. First of all,
that's true. I am sponsored by DraftKings, so
all right. So let's go off.
I can't go off the FanDuel odds.
Let me add a little something to that. First of all, that's got to be based on the Rangers that pretty much have the same team and they lost. The Devils made a bunch. The Rangers made the Devils made a bunch of key moves. The Rangers didn't do anything to take that next step as far as moves.
The Rangers made it to the conference finals and had the best record in the NHL last year, and they bring in the same team back. So even if they have the exact same team,
I don't see that as an issue until the trade deadline rolls around.
A couple of bounces here and there, and they win the Stanley Cup.
Well, no, they didn't have it mentally. They didn't have.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Well, that's what the odds makers are looking. That's what the odds makers are looking at also, not just
right. So they're looking at New Jersey with 80-something points last year or whatever they had, 90 points. And they're like, oh, they got Jacob Markstrom and Stefan Nason. So now they're going to win the Cup? I mean.
Well, they want people to bet it.
So Oilers, DraftKings is your sponsor? Okay. Oilers plus 800, Panthers plus 1,000, Dallas plus 1,100. Toronto, Rangers, Devils, Avalanche, and Hurricanes all plus 1,300.
Okay.
So
like I said, that's a little bit more like of what I could see. Although, again, you're looking at a Devils team that is coming off of not making the playoffs and not really coming close.
It's crazy.
But I think they're also looking at the Devils and saying if they are healthy and they are rolling like they were 2 years ago, with the addition of Markstrom, with the addition of Stefan Nason, I would have sworn you would have brought up Brett Pesce in that discussion, but I mean, you brought.
Oh yeah, I forgot Brett Pesce.
You brought Nason into the discussion, but I think that they are banking on the Devils, redeeming themselves, and that's
San Jose plus 40,000 if you want to take a shot.
Well, I tell people if you want
$1,
if you want to do that, use code
$1 on it.
Use Coach THPN at DraftKings and do it. I mean, slam it. Be my guest. That's the way I look at it.
So where do you think the Devils are going to finish next year with those odds in mind?
We doing just regular season or like just season overall?
Regular. The way I look at it is too hard to say. Like they're going to be a 6 seed or whatever. So are they a bubble team, a wild card team? Are they a lottery team? Are they a contender for the Stanley Cup? Are they a division contender? Like generally, where do you think they are?
I think the Devils are right now in the stage of being a division contender. I think that they will finish in the top 3. I can't say definitively that they're going to win the division because even with, some of the, moves being made by the Devils and other teams in the Metro Division and some of the teams not being great, I call the Metropolitan Division the division of death for a reason. It is a grind. It is tough to win that division, regardless of who it is. It is tough because you're facing so many of the game's best, 4 times a year. And it's gonna be a drag. And I think the Devils, there's gonna be times this year. I caution Devils fans that you may not see as flashy, of a team as we've seen in the past with the Devils, but you might see a team that grinds out games a lot more, grinds out wins, finds different ways to win, from guys maybe you don't expect, i.e. playoff hockey, essentially. And I think that they want to use the regular season to kind of learn that so that they're prepared once the playoffs start. So that's kind of where I see them. So I see them as a team that will, be in the top 3 in the Metro and certainly be in a playoff spot. And as far as how far I think they can go, I think they can go as far as they want to go. I think that's really just kind of how I look at it, honestly.
So you don't see the cover of NHL being a jinx?
No, I see it as somewhat of a jinx, but not for Jack.
Why not for Jack and the other? And why for the others?
Because Jack has a lot to prove. Because Jack's coming off of a year where a lot of different people are criticizing him, again, for the lack of not being healthy and, all this stuff and, wondering if he's truly.
If you look at the chat, I mean, we're not allowed to criticize Jack Hughes.
Right. You're not allowed to.
Sorry.
Right,
apparently other people are also doing it, though. It's not just us.
That's why I'm doing it.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate
no one can say anything. If I'm
the guy in the Devil's shirt.
The guy in the Devil's shirt is the one that's saying it. But I think for Jack, just like I said with a lot of the guys on the team, I think that it's going to be a team of motivated players, a team of pissed off players. And I think that's what makes me excited about the team, that they're coming in as a motivated group. In terms of the jinx, I mean, it is real. There is no question. That's kind of except unless you're Austin Matthews, which apparently, it just doesn't mean anything until you get to the playoffs.
Wait, are you saying the jinx is real? A jinx is real. There's no question. There's no question that a jinx is not a real
question
thing.
That there's a jinx. Oh, there is no question in my opinion. There is absolutely no question. Why do you think the Mets haven't won anything in so damn long? There's constantly
there's a lot of reasons for that
with the Mets. The second that the OMG music video came out, the Mets have slowly but surely.
No, did you see it the other night? The other night I was watching the Mets and Gary Cohen's I think Manaea was pitching. He had a no-hitter through 6 innings or something.
Yep.
He's been perfect through the first 18, and the pitch line drive base in the left field.
Yeah, I mean it's the thing. The amount of times that I've watched a Devils game. The running joke last year on social media was the Devils would post their we're underway post. Literally the very next post would be 1-0 them. Whoever we're playing. So that would be to me, it was at a point where can we just stop doing that and just get to the game? It's not worth going through the exercise. So
I will say this. If Dougie Hamilton stays healthy and the addition of Pesci and the goaltending, I think they can withstand the Jack Hughes injury a lot better than last year.
That's what I'm saying. I think the team is built more to withstand, maybe losing a guy or two, that they can, next man up type of mentality.
Yeah, but they can't lose Hughes and Hischier again.
Right. No, they can't do that. Obviously.
No,
they can't.
10 games each, separate times, maybe something like that they could withstand. But the shoulder injuries with Hughes, and it's just brutal.
Yeah. We keep telling Nico Hischier he's got to do off-season training with the Swiss Army. He has to do something, anything to get him going, or follow Timo Meyer's diet or whatever. Just figure it out, something like that.
Turn into a bobblehead. Timo Meyer's got a huge head. You don't think so?
I mean, Timo Meyer's got his own thing going on. So.
All right. Well, now you gotta build up to that. What does that mean?
You looked off.
You don't like Timo?
screen and you make that statement.
Timo Meyer is Timo Meyer in the room or something? You got him like you holding him hostage over there. Oh, he looked at his bobble.
You talking about this Timo Meyer?
Oh, that's so funny.
That's why I looked this way when you said that, because I'm like, wow, he really just said that, and
that
there's one staring at
way
me.
too small.
Yeah, there is a Meyer bobblehead there. It's funny.
There is a Meyer bobblehead, but no, like with Timo, the thing about him is that what's so interesting is that last year he was criticized a lot because there were times where he wasn't, like, his game wasn't there. He wasn't producing at the level that everybody expected him to. But in reality, you find out at the end of the season, oh, he had 2 different knee injuries to both of his knees. And he still finished as the team leader in goals. He still had a really, really productive season despite it all. And so that he's a guy that can score, is a guy that can, be physical. I just heard a dog.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I keep staring at that dog. It's a lovely dog.
He's on every episode.
Is that the podcast mascot? Is that what I'm going for?
One of them.
Yeah, we have a few animals. I got Mika next to me over here sleeping.
Yeah. But I think Timo, I still tell people Timo Meyer's going to have a bounce back year for him. I think he's ready to go. I think like I said, I think this team is motivated. I think everybody has motivation to one degree or another. And that's what I like from my team, a team that's motivated, that has a lot of reasons to turn this around and get going. That's the way I look at it.
Well, they should be motivated because they had a pretty disappointing season last year. The Rangers did not really, even though a lot of fans are disappointed. They won the President's Trophy and went to the conference final. I'll repeat that. It was a pretty exciting year. I know it ended in disappointment, but I don't think anyone predicted, after the Rangers were kind of handled by New Jersey in that first round, that the Rangers would come back and win the President's Trophy. They had something to prove.
I didn't say the President's Trophy, but I did say the Metro.
Yeah, you did. But still, when I say I'm sure no one predicted the Rangers to be the best team in the league, I mean, no Homer Ranger fans who'd randomly, predict.
No, that's usually Vegas, Colorado, Tampa.
Like an analyst, like an objective analyst, nobody predicted the Rangers to win the President's Trophy.
Wait, so does that mean the President's Trophy jinx is for real too?
Yes, that's for sure.
There's no doubt. So the Rangers had a great year. So I keep asking myself, as a fan, how can, like, other than winning the Stanley Cup, there's really no, and I said last episode, maybe making the finals, fine. They just want to break my heart even further. But other than winning the Stanley Cup, can they even improve? Right now, with that in mind, I mean, do you see the Rangers, I'm leading you into the question a little. Do you see them taking a step back, or do you see them taking that next step to reach the finals? Because that's the only step left for this group.
I would lean more towards that they're more likely to take the next step to get into the finals than taking a step back right now. That's the way that I look at it. I will say that the window for the Rangers to, like, truly contend is closing. And whatever happens to the future of Igor Shesterkin contractually, I think that depends on, I think that is a big factor to it all. What's really simple for the Rangers is that there is no excuse, right? There was no need to really make, like, what else could they, like you said, what else could they have done, to, make this team, a team that could win a Stanley Cup and have the season that they did. Everybody said, oh, they should have traded that first round pick that James Dolan didn't want to give up because of the Sphere. Well, what would they have gotten that would have been any better than what they got? I mean, what were they? They didn't.
Well,
really
the fans are saying they should have went for Jake Gensel at the deadline. They probably could have gotten him if they gave up Kakko in a first, right? But then right now they wouldn't have Kakko. They wouldn't have EJ Emery in their system, and they'd still not have a Stanley Cup.
And would they be able to pay Jake Gensel what he wanted? Is the other question.
No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, again, but that would have been tough if the Rangers had gotten Gensel and went as far as they did, and then they didn't get it done. Like that would be frustrating in that own right, because then people would say, "Oh, then
Yeah,
it's the constant thing." I think
and
that
then Kako becomes a 35 goal scorer with Sidney Crosby.
exactly right. That's how
Right.
it goes. But I think with the Rangers, you can't help but be optimistic going into the season that it's basically the same team, it's the same coaching staff, it's the same system, everything's the same, which is very hard to keep in this day and age in the NHL, to keep basically almost the entire team together, and everybody knows how things work. There's already chemistry there. You know how things are going. And I think that's important. And Peter Laviolette is one of the best coaches in the NHL, a proven winner wherever he's gone, except maybe, except maybe the Islanders, it's, early in his career, but that's besides the point.
He was successful with the Islanders. That was a surprise that they got rid of him, in my opinion. He had the Islanders in the playoffs.
True. But you look at what he did with, several teams,
after that
with Carolina.
As far as the finals, yeah.
Right. So I think with the Rangers, here's the biggest thing I will say. The Rangers have to find a way to get more goal support for Shesterkin, because this is exactly what happened many times when Henrik Lundqvist was in net. Many years in the playoffs where they would
in the playoffs, you mean?
Goal support. In the playoffs.
The Rangers score goals.
Yeah, no. In the regular season, fine. Like they're fine. It's not an issue. It's once you get into the playoffs, and there were games where the Rangers offense was there. There is no question. That last game against Carolina, the offense at the end of the game was there. There is no question. But the thing is that there were also times where it felt like the Rangers just, as usual, back up, let Shesterkin make 40 plus saves and hope to God that you win 2-1 or 1-0 or try to get it to overtime. The Rangers have to be a more aggressive team offensively in the playoffs. They have to find ways to get the puck in the back of the net and not rely on one of the best goaltenders in the NHL to constantly bail you out, because you did that a lot with Henrik Lundqvist in the playoffs in the many years that you were there. Even 2014 when they made the finals, that was a big thing, is that the Rangers, relied heavily on Henrik Lundqvist throughout the playoffs to, get them that far. So that would be the biggest thing. And I don't know how necessarily you change it, whether it's a mindset, a different style, tweaking some things. That's how, and it's got to come from the big guys. It's got to come from Kreider. It's got to come from Panarin. It's got to come from Zibanejad. It's got to come from, Adam Fox. It's got to come from all these. Vincent Trocheck, I'll even put in there. Although I will say Trocheck was there. Trocheck was there many times, and I'll give him a lot of credit. But I'm just saying, like, I don't want to say that if they don't do it, like this is going to be the reason that Shesterkin is not going to stay in New York, because I think it would be insane if he didn't stay in New York. I'm just being honest. But it may be a factor if, like, let's say the Rangers have another disappointing season where they get in the playoffs, their offense isn't there, Shesterkin's doing literally everything possible to keep the team in it, and they don't get it done. He might get frustrated and just be like, obviously I want to get paid, but at the same time I want to win. Like, I'm getting frustrated here because I'm not getting support.
On the goalie topic, we got two comments from K-Miska92. First, this Rangers team is better in every position than Hank's Rangers, which is probably tough to argue.
If Hank had this team, oh man, you would have won the cup.
But again,
a couple times probably.
Once the playoffs get underway, it needs to be there.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you
for sure. That's what we talked about after the playoff run ended. That was the main issue. Certain people didn't show up. But back to the goalies, given what was given up from Markstrom and Askarov, what would you have rathered?
And it's interesting you bring up Askarov, because it was reported that the Devils were in the mix. I don't know how many teams were in the mix, but the fact that the Devils were in it was somewhat of a surprise. I thought but again, it shows you how much the Devils desperately want to solve the goaltending.
Wait, they were in the mix for Askarov even after getting Markstrom?
Correct, they were.
Wow.
Which again, like I said, shows you how much the Devils even are thinking both in the short term and the long term in terms of their goaltending.
Well, Askarov is a long-term solution, and Markstrom is a short-term solution.
But here's the thing. I would still go with the Markstrom deal because of this reason. Askarov is completely unproven in the NHL. We have no idea if he's going to be good or not. We have zero footage of him. We have no clue. And it's good that he's going to go to the Sharks, I'll just say, because, yeah, it's obviously a bad team, but he's going to play a ton. Yeah. So we're going to get a really big picture. And what's interesting is that if you look at Mackenzie Blackwood's underlying numbers last year in San Jose, he was actually pretty good despite the win-loss record.
Wait, they have Blackwood and Vitek Vanacek.
They have Blackwood and Vitek. I cannot make this up. I cannot make it up. And they have, and now they have Fabian Zetterlund. They have Tyler Toffoli. They have like many former Devils on the Sharks.
Well, they also have Barclay Goodrow.
And they got Barclay Goodrow back. And Goodrow is so happy to be back in San Jose.
That could be the missing piece for the President's Trophy, according to our boy JR in the chat.
Maybe. But I think
that's the only different piece of the team.
Well, you replaced him with Riley Smith.
Yeah,
that's essentially what you did.
Decent upgrade, I guess.
I would say so personally.
Nah, we'll miss Goudreau on this show for sure. Minus his offensive production.
And so I think I would say this: if the Devils were thinking, like, if they were a team that needed long-term, like looking for a long-term young netminder, I would do the Askarov deal. But I don't know what the Devils offered. I really don't. I don't know what was talked about.
Would you have traded Dawson Mercer for Askarov?
I would not. Because, again, Askarov is unproven. The whole thing about, when the Devils were very interested in Jussi Saros and they tried to get him, the thing was with Saros is that he was proven. Like, he's proven it that he's a very good goaltender. Same thing with Jacob Markstrom. And the Devils are trying to win now. And they do have young netminders waiting in the wing. The whole plan, if everything just stays, where it is.
This is a throwback to one of our early episodes.
Curtis, you will not disrespect Arlette while I'm here. That is not cool. Arlette is the best. She is amazing.
This is a throwback to one of our early episodes that Coach Ed said that the Rangers will never win until they have a consistent national anthem singer. Which they now do, so we'll see. I was going to
say, don't they have a consistent one now?
Yeah, Brancy's great. He doesn't do every single game, but he does most. And he does every playoff game.
I ran into him on the street in New York yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's coming back from the Yankee game, and I saw him, and I was like, "Isn't that like the Rangers like national anthem singer?" Like I didn't know his name, but I recognized the face.
Yeah.
And my brother was like, "Why the hell do you know
Grammy Award-winning baritone? How do you not?"
Yeah, well, like my brother was like, "Why the hell do you know that? Like, why do you know? You're like the only person on this street that would even know who that dude is."
You don't know every Grammy Award-winning baritone?
No, I know, and I come from a family of singers, and I'm surprised I didn't know that.
And piano makers.
Piano, yeah. Unfortunately, we only have one piano in this household, so we keep it at a minimum in this one. But
oh man, well, Neil,
again, I would do the Markstrom trade still personally.
There you go. All right,
Neil, appreciate your honesty in this episode, and your always bringing the energy. You're enthusiastic about your team, but you also are humble and realistic. So always a pleasure to talk to you and get a different perspective on the Rangers and on our opponents as well.
And if I go to the game with you, Neil, I'm buying you the biggest box of popcorn that possibly is.
Do they have popcorn buckets?
Just so I can get a word. Just so I can get a word.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'll just shut up and watch the game. I'll just shut up.
The popcorn will be flying. The popcorn will be flying.
I will definitely look. I will take your offer to go to a game with Ed. I will. Coach Ed, I will do it.
We'll see what we got. We got the half season. I don't know if we have a regular season Devils game, but we definitely have the preseason game. So I'll take a look.
Just let me know. Let me know. I'm around. Cool, but again, thank you guys so much for having me on. I absolutely love chatting with you boys all the time.
Yep. Always.
It's my second Rangers podcast guest spot in the last week, so I'm really enjoying.
Your Rangers out?
Yeah, I'm really glad that across the Hudson, everybody wants my opinion. So,
well, it's a valuable one. So good job, Neil. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, buddy.
I look forward to working with you guys throughout the season.
Yeah,
we'll
for
talk
sure, man.
All right.
See you later.
Have a good night, boys. Be well.
Later, bud. You too.
All right, that's Neil Villapiano of the Devil State of Mind podcast. Check him out at the MVP show, at Devil State, at Pitchforked Puck. He's also writing for them. He's on YouTube, X, Instagram, and he's part of the Hockey Podcast Network. So shout out to Neil. Thanks for coming on, buddy. Always a good interview. I thought Neil was very realistic about his opinion of the Rangers. I was surprised. I want to say realistic. I say optimistic about the Rangers, and more realistic about New Jersey. He seemed a little tentative to. I was expecting him to come in and say we're going to win the division, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can't. I mean,
I think he learned his lesson from last year.
Yeah, he learned his lesson because after they beat the Rangers that year, he thought they were going to be going on, as did most Devils people, as did most NHL analysts. And
a lot of them.
So now you got to be a little bit more cautious in your, a little, let's say, scared to make a big prediction like that. You don't want to be that. He doesn't want to be that arrogant person that he says the players were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what are your thoughts on the Devils? I know that's a big topic amongst Ranger fans right now, and looking at previews coming up here for the season, the Devils are right in the mix in the top 3 in the Metro. I saw earlier one of our listeners said the Devils are like the only team in the Metro. I forgot who it was, but one of the Devils are the only team in the Metro to really scare them. So is this like I don't know. I'm not like scared. I'm not scared yet of the Devils, but I do think they improved and they filled some holes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
really.
I
guess they're a playoff team.
They could only go up from where they were, right? I mean, they had to add something, and there was plenty of pieces out there for them to add. I mean, I think the biggest thing, I didn't want to go too hard on Neil, but I don't trust Markstrom. I don't believe in Markstrom, and I definitely don't believe in Keefe. I mean, I bring it up all the time, that show All or Nothing on Amazon Prime. If you haven't checked it out, you should definitely check it out. But seeing him behind the scenes, I just didn't like his style. I didn't like how he handled the team, how he handled interviews, everything, So nothing against the guy. I just didn't personally like his coaching style. And I don't want to say that was a huge reason why the Maple Leafs never got over the hump, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with it. And I think they're going to be a lot better this year without him. So I don't think the Devils necessarily going to be any better with him. So,
well, you make a good point about Keefe. I can't disagree with you there. The thing about Markstrom is there are seasons where the guy has like a Vezina caliber year, So
and the seasons where he's horrendous.
I would say he's horrendous.
Not horrendous, but not nearly up, not up to where
middle of the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's at worst. He's at worst a middle of the road guy. I don't think he's had any like horrendous seasons.
I definitely think
his potential.
He's getting older though.
I definitely think he's someone you could win a Stanley Cup with.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. He's a good goalie. I wouldn't say he's like an elite goalie, but the Devils had nothing last year in net, and he's a legit goaltender. So that's an improvement, going from 32nd in the NHL in goaltending, whatever it is, to 15th. That's a lot of points in the standings,
right. Like I said, they could only go up from where they were.
Well, I'm going to agree with that one fan. They scare me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. With those moves they made and their offensive firepower, they're going to be a tough team.
It's going to be healthy. It's going to be a big issue for New Jersey. We'll see if they can stay healthy. But it'll be interesting. It'll be good to look. Imagine the Metro ends in some fashion. Rangers, Devils, Islanders in the top 3 spots. That's a very strong possibility this season that could happen. I mean, Carolina looks like they took a step back. Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington are getting older. I don't know. We can easily have a lot of we could play. The Rangers could play the Islanders or Devils in the first round, and then the Islanders or Devils in the second round next season. That's what it's shaping up to look like. I think the Devils are a playoff team, though, I would have to say. We'll get into our full predictions as we get closer to training camp and some of the injuries hash themselves out. I'm sure we'll get some of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, who we got next week? We're off, right? Because it's Labor Day. Who do we got after that?
I believe Mikey Piersack and his buddy Boozy from Only Bruins podcast. And then the week after that, we're going to close it out with Penguins Tip of the Iceberg podcast with Nick. We finally got an answer from the Hurricanes podcast. We're going to have to postpone that to sometime during the season. Hopefully we can set something up, but they're not going to make it on before the season starts.
Okay. So we got Boston.
Maybe I can ask Neil if he has anybody else that would be interested, but either way.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, the Hurricanes they had a tough off season, but we'll talk about them in the preview episode anyway. So we got next week, we're off. It's Labor Day. Everybody have a happy and healthy long weekend. Enjoy. Hope if you're traveling, be safe. If not, hopefully you get some good weather. Enjoy it. And we'll be back the week after, the 9th.
Yeah.
Talk a little Boston Bruins.
Well, you didn't get to really talk much before in the intro. Anything going on you wanted to bring up?
I got nothing going on, man. I'm just
nothing?
Working.
With the new house, working. Nothing?
No, I'm just little by little emptying boxes, dude. You know what it's like to move? I got nothing going on.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot to mention
emptying boxes, working. Emptying boxes, working. That's it.
Yeah. Fair. Well, I forgot to mention before, Tennessee Meg and Tennessee Michelle sent up some Suiter's Sweet Treats for the fair. A bunch of cookies that I was able to sell a few, give out a few to some fans, some kids on the boardwalk. Had all different New York sports logos. And
very nice.
She also sent up some beach theme cookies, and we promoted their Instagram page. Hopefully we got some sales. Very good idea by them to put the QR code on the back of the packaging. They said they do that for all their trade fairs. That's why this is a little bit different packaging than you would see if you place an order personally. So this was like specific packaging just for a trade show that she said. But yeah, she's just great. Anything I ask from her, she always comes through, and she even surprises us with plenty of stuff. So they're great down there. So support them if you can. Suiter's Sweet Treats on Instagram, and place your order for your next event. And then also, cuz you'll get a kick out of this. This kid Lucas, hopefully he's listening. I told him about our Bruins episode in 2 weeks, but he's from Boston, and he saw that I had some of my cards out on the table. So I brought some of my cards to kind of try to sell, but I ran out of time, didn't have much time to put thought into it, to put prices on them and stuff. So he came over and he's like, "You mind if I flip through your cards?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, go ahead." Like, I was kind of like distracted by like selling other stuff to people. And he comes over to coach, and he's like, "Hey, coach," or whatever. He's like, "Does your son know like this card's worth $100?" And he's like,
"No." I said to him, I saw the kid holding the card, and he was on his phone. So when he came over, I said, "Well, how much is it worth?" He goes, "Like $200."
Yeah. So apparently,
I said, "What do you want to give Eddie?" I go, "What do you want to give Eddie for it?" He goes, "I don't know how much." I go talk to him, and then Eddie comes over, and I go, "Ed, you better check this out."
Yeah, so he's a younger kid. He was a super nice kid, obviously, very honest.
Nice that he looked it up.
Yeah, he's like, I'm from Boston. I don't really collect hockey cards, so like, I just wanted to tell you, like, this is worth $100. And he showed me the eBay page. I didn't have a ton of time to like look into it, like further into it or whatever. So I still have to do that. But I offered the kid a free jersey plaque as a thank you, and he didn't take any off the table. But I'm gonna make him a Dustin Pedroia plaque. He wanted that. Young kid too, so I don't even know if he was old enough to see Pedroia play.
Wow. No way.
But he appreciates the history for sure. So that was super cool. So thank you, Lucas. I hope you're listening.
What was the card?
Well, it was a Mika Zibanejad metal universe card. Like, I thought it was just a base card. I have 2 or 3 of them. So I was like, I just threw like all of my doubles that I have like a ton of like out on the table. I was like, whatever. If someone makes me an offer,
just thinking it in an alternate universe, in the multiverse somewhere, you sent me that card in the mail because you thought it was a double, and then I have it. You should sell it. $100.
I don't know, so I got to look it up.
No,
so
I'm saying you sent me doubles. Like, now I got to check all the doubles you sent me.
Yeah, you might have something.
And let me tell you something. Eddie's not going to be honest and say, "Yeah, take this back." It's
right. No, I would totally do that. Stop.
No, well, if you find something, we'll split it. But yeah, Lucas was a super nice kid. He came back the next day, and he's like, "Hey, you mind if I go through your cards again?" I was like, "Yeah, man, knock yourself out." And he ended up buying some of my Bruins doubles. I was like, yeah. He's like, how much you want for these? I was like, dude, just give me $20. I wasn't gonna stay. We didn't have great cell phone service, so we couldn't really look them up. I was like, whatever, man. Just give me $20. I don't care.
Before we get off, I need your help.
Uh-oh.
So I saw you made a bunch of card boxes. I got all these loose cards in here. You see this?
Yep.
And I got nowhere to put them. So I don't know if you got any ideas.
We got the card boxes. Me and Coach, we got them up for sale. So if anyone has some trading cards they need to organize, I could definitely do that. Me and Lindsay are going to be working. Randoms. Yeah, we're going to be working on our social media and posting all of our stuff this week in the next coming weeks. We're working on doing like a website or something better than Etsy to put all of our stuff on that we don't have to pay the Etsy fees and stuff. So yeah, we're working on that. But all of our stuff would be nice a card
box Rangers Ed podcast logo on it. That would be dope.
I'll do it.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk off the show.
We'll talk about pricing. Yeah. Promo code Little Ed's Workshop.
All right, guys. Enjoy Labor Day. I'm sure I'll talk to you over it, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you to all the listeners for joining in, and for those listeners afterwards, thank you as well.
Yeah. And sorry, one more last shout out to Oscar for sending me all the Rangers like nameplates, like the font that I was able to upload to my program to make all the cuts. So I was able to do every other team except for the Rangers because it's so unique. So thank you, Oscar. I'm going to have to be bothering you for a few more players in the next coming weeks. I got some orders. But yeah, I couldn't have done those without you, or I couldn't have made them look as official, I should say.
Yeah, and sorry, Oscar, for the Saturday night 10 p.m. text. We were watching Saving Sakic, me and Theo. Did you watch that yet?
No, not yet. I want to.
You should watch it on ESPN Plus. It's a crazy story how the Rangers almost got Joe Sakic, right? So we'll watch that before the next episode, and we'll talk about it, both of you.
All right.
So I was telling Theo, I'm like, I met Joe Sakic at the Hall of Fame. And I was looking for the photo. I'm like, I don't have the picture. So I had to text Oscar, like, do you have this picture of me with Joe Sakic? And he sent me the photo. I guess he took it and like never sent it to me.
He didn't put it in the folder?
No, maybe. I don't know. I just didn't download it. I couldn't find it. So. But anyway.
Sorry, one last thing. Apparently, over-under for Rempe goals in the season is 2.5.
Hammer over.
Oh, without a doubt.
He's going to score 2.5.
There you go, K-Miska. Over 2.5.
He's going to score 2.5 off his shin pad. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Let's do it.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. Love you guys. See you guys later.
Practice for Stony Brook tonight. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. Good luck.
Have
I ain't
fun.
going now. Love you guys.